So I'm going to start recording, if that's okay.
Yep.
And I will start my slides. So, color theory part 2. And
Is this actually part 2, or is it the same thing that Julia had done
so Julia
yesterday?
did part 1. I introduced a little bit more of the color wheel, sort of going through foundational, primary, secondary, tertiary colors and color harmony. And so I've got the recording for that, which I'm happy to share as well. And this sort of builds on that, but you're not, you can gather, and I'm doing a bit of recap from that previous lesson. So things will overlap and we'll go and build from there. So first off, just an agenda, what we're going to go through in the next 10 to 15 minutes. So I'll go through a little bit of housekeeping. I'm going to go through the goals and the outcomes of this lesson. And today we will talk a little bit about color harmony and some schemes to consider when going into UI strategies and brand strategies. And the real core that we'll talk a lot about is the color meaning, color psychology, things to consider when going into developing, and skinning your UI elements. I've got a little bit of a fun branding exercise, and I'll do a bit of a wrap up. So that's the agenda. And I mentioned first a little bit of housekeeping. So for me, teaching in the online environment, I want to make sure that you're in a safe environment, and posture and ergonomics and that comes to play. So I will, and I have mentioned the video is being recorded. So this is for educational purposes and will only it won't be distributed. It's for these purposes only. 10-minute lesson, and any questions that you have, you can jot them down in the chat, and so I can capture that and we can talk about that further. And then just a reminder of the feedback form that I emailed earlier, if you can have a chance to go through that following this session and provide that back to me, which would be great. So the outcome of today is to have a look and make sure that learners can identify some basics of the color schemes and harmony that is used, and some color meaning, some psychology to consider. So I'll start by asking this question up front. So why do you think color is important? It's a big open-ended question, but why do you think it's important?
I think color is important because it evokes emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Have you ever been in a restaurant where the color maybe puts you off, or maybe suppresses your appetite? Color can raise your blood pressure. So color can sway our thinking, right? It's an emotional connection right away. It can change our actions. It can cause reactions. So it's a powerful form of communication. And some simple things that we think of in our own environment, right away we have that understanding of red as a stop, green as go, and yellow as a caution. So within our world of, and we talk about semiotics, the color or the study of symbols and signs, color can come into that. Color has a way to define an era as well. So when we think of the word zeitgeist, which is sort of an era, the 80s had a certain color combination, color scheme. The 70s had color scheme. And so our color perception does change over time, and it can be really, really powerful. And it can be really powerful in branding. So brands and colors have a direct link because of color and its instantaneous method of conveying the meaning and the messages without words. So color is a visual component that people remember right away. And then it's often followed by the shapes and the symbols and the numbers and then the words. So, this example here, McDonald's is immediately recognized. Even if you took out the word McDonald's, we can, just have that recognizable red and yellow combination. And so it becomes a really powerful tool right away, because it's one of the first things we see. Before shape, before symbol, it is the microsecond judgment and emotional connection that we have. So things to consider when we talk about branding and the approaches is that there are some cultural considerations. So red, for example, in China represents good luck. But in South Africa, the color it's a color of mourning, right? So there's these color associations and connections. Americans and not so much Canadians, but green is money, right? We see that, and that's sometimes a global thing. And black is mourning in Western society. East Asian countries, white, right, is more of the mourning color. So we have these color associations within cultures. Really important when you're thinking about branding, when you're thinking about global brands. Time is something that's interesting, because in the up until the 1920s and 30s, pink was for boys, blue was for girls. And the history behind that is that red being sort of a strong masculine color, pink was sort of derived from it. So you had the lighter pink. And so, yeah, the masculine color of red, it was for blue, it was strong. And so blue was a feminine, it's a softer color. And so things changed. So in the marketing age is now, and still to this day, pink is seen as the girly color, blue is seen as the boy color. But time changes that. And I think it's interesting now. I think we're going back to another bit of a shift. Yeah. So shades and tones, so tints, tones, shades of a color. The lighter the shade is very, it's dramatically different compared to a darker shade. It's a little more, darker shades are muted. They can convey a little more moodier tone versus a lighter, softer, more feminine side. So considering the shades and the tones. Color combinations are really important, because we can talk about contrast, right? So we can think about some of the complementary orange and blues, the yellows and the purples that come really well together. And color meaning. So when I say the word anger, what word comes to mind, or what color comes to mind?
Red.
Right. And then what if I say love?
Red.
Red again, right? So there's always ways how color can be shifted, and the perception of an emotion that you see on one side and love that you see on another side. It can really be a very large spectrum. And so it's important to consider those meanings. So we'll talk about meaning, and we'll talk first off about brand combinations. And these are four. There's many more, but these are four brand combinations that are used quite often for brands, but also within UI skinning. Monochromatic is used, and monochromatic meaning one color, and it's used in the tint, tones, and shades. It's used quite often because it's an easy way to provide visual cohesiveness, meaning like it belongs to the same family, and you can see like onboarding, UI elements where this is used a lot. So an analogous, so the top right-hand corner, this is used a lot because it is often, it is used and seen more naturally in the world. So when you pick up a leaf, anything off the ground, it'll have green, but it'll also have tinges of blue. And so anything color like close to each other, the left and the right, is analogous. Complementary, meaning opposite of the color spectrum. So here, the yellow purple. So this is a great color complementary approach for creating contrast, creating bold messages. And you also have split complementary. So it's complementary and split complementary. Triad is a really great approach too, because it allows you to have a lot of different combination colors or variety. And example of triad would be like Burger King, where they use a triangular based approach to it. So these are some color combinations. And now let's get into a little bit of some of the meaning, some of the important meanings of the colors. So we have red. Yes, we associate this with passion and anger, like something that's really authoritative. So funny enough, like, GA has red because it's an authoritative color. It's a brand color that's very authoritative. We can think of also red goes into the a color spectrum that stimulates appetite. So you see it in like McDonald's and restaurants a lot. So it evokes that emotion. So energy, passion, authoritative, anger. So these are some of the words and adjectives we can use to think about our brands. It's primary color, right? So it's a strong, pure color that's derived within the primary wheel. Orange, again, another warm color. It has the warmth of the red, but like a playfulness of the yellow. So it's kind of a nice in between. And that's where it gets into the creative world. Like, so it's youthfulness, and it's got that energetic color and association with oranges. Brands like, I think of the Dutch when I think of orange. I think of ING. I think of banking, where it's just sort of got that really nice youthfulness and playfulness. Yellow, again, a really strong primary color, is associated with, happiness, right? It's got this really fun, positive energy about it. And that's why it's used quite a lot in that complementary yellow and purple. Purple sort of going on to a little bit more of a little royalty, high end of a brand. It can also signify caution, right? The traffic light analogy of caution. And especially when you start to mute the yellow, it starts to get into this sort of cowardly emotion. So it can be used when it's bright, right? When the brighter the color and in its primary form, it has that really strong, positive energy about it. And so yellow, orange, red, warm colors. Green, we're starting to get into the cooler colors. So this is naturally going into nature, right? So we think about grass and plants and trees, so that representation of growth, renewal, and that's where stability comes in. So we think of that ground stability, and can you think of any brands where green has a bit of that? Some of the, what brands do you think of when you think of green?
I feel like, hang on, let me just check.
You've seen tons of them. You're not Googling green brands, are you? What comes to mind?
I was thinking Standard Chartered.
Yep.
Their logo is like blue and green.
Yep. So there's the wealth industry. So there are a lot of banks that go into this world. Spotify uses green. Starbucks, Woolworths is the one for me. I think when I think of green, it has that that nature, I guess, right? That natural sort of connection to produce. So now blue, and this is again sort of a cooler palette, primary color. It's the calming color, right? It represents calm, intelligence, responsibility. And so blue is actually one of the most used colors because it has that really strong, stable trustworthiness, and a lot of tech uses blue, right? A lot of the tech world is blue. And a lot of brands use blue as a safe color because they want to put forward that emotion or that personality of trustworthiness and intelligence. And blue is a color that will last the ages, right? And so the lighter blues, you know, sort of going into that peacefulness, and the darker blues signifying depth and power. So that's it's really interesting. You'll see a lot of blue in branding. Purple is an interesting color. So it's both warm and cool, sort of in between, and it combines the passion and the energy of red. It's sort of got that calmness and the serenity of blue. So it's kind of nice in between. And purple, from a historical perspective, was connected to royalty because it was a color that was hard to find. So the queen, she loves purple. It's connected with that more luxurious brand element and that history. So when I think of purple, the one for me is Hallmark, right? So it has this connection, and yeah, but it leans towards that little more of the expensive royalty side.
Mm.
Pink, again, I mentioned sort of a bit of the history, but definitely has still to this day a more feminine approach. But the real, I think, power in the pink is playfulness. It really has a strong playfulness to it. And I think it's underused. It's devalued, and it needs to sort of come more forward. And I think we'll see some more of pink in the coming days or years, I'd say. Sensitivity, tenderness, right? Lyft uses pink, interestingly enough. They use, yeah, they started off with pink. Like, they might have pivoted, and like, it's not one of their, it is one of their main colors, I believe. T-Mobile, right?
Right.
A little bit of the 80s. It's interesting. And so brown as a natural color is not used a lot in branding, right? So a strong one that does come to mind, though, is UPS, right? But they use other color palettes alongside of it. But it's down to earth, you know. It's got that sense of stability, and it's got that sense of honesty and support, which is why it works really well. And then the color, like lack of color, right? So black and white is not technically a color, but they're used a lot. Black in particular, like black is the luxury brand, right? It's the elegance, it's the Chanel, it's the Dior, it's the, when you see a black wine label, right, and it's black and white, it has this sophisticated look to it. And white being, yes, the minimal. So more of, you know, Western cultures, it's associated with purity. You know, Asian colors, yeah, it's mourning. But if you think of Apple's packaging and the use of white and minimalism, right? But also just white as a way of creating ease of readability and brand extension. So it can be used a lot, black and white, and then a color itself. So that really was a short sort of introduction to a little bit of the color and the meaning, the psychology behind it. So I'm going to play a little fun game here, see sort of brand recognition and how that comes about. So what do you think for number one?
It looks like a country's flag.
It does. It is a country's flag.
True, though.
Sweden, right?
Oh, Sweden? Okay.
Well, I mean, there's many countries with this color combination. But
Yeah.
let's think global brands. And some of your products maybe in your home. No, maybe not. So this one's IKEA.
Oh,
yeah. Right, when you see it and when someone tells you, like, oh, of course it is. Yeah. Number two.
I'm not gonna get number two.
No.
Oh.
Wake up every morning and, you know, go down and grab some
Starbucks.
Yes, Starbucks. Yes. Number three is easy.
McDonald's.
Yeah. Four, I don't know. A lot of these are Americanized, but they're global brands. Number four, that soft teal with the purity of the white, This is Tiffany.
Oh,
Tiffany brand.
Tiffany.
Yeah, this is Tiffany.
Is that the exact Tiffany blue? Looks like.
Pretty close. Like, yeah, a brand will use a tint, tone, and shade of certain colors, right? So you'll probably could see like lighter and darker version, that monochromatic approach to the color palette, right? Yeah. 5. I didn't get this one right away either. But,
I need a hint.
I don't know. I eat a lot of this every day.
You eat a lot of it?
Yeah,
Mm.
it's a big
Is it a snack?
sugar for my sugar hit.
Oh, Cadbury?
There you go. Yep, chocolate Cadbury. Number 6. I was completely lost with this one. This is Harold's, again, sort of a US one.
Harold's.
Harold's, yeah, department store. Not.
No, that's a UK store, no?
Is it?
Is it Harrods?
Harrods, yeah.
I
I
think
thought it was
that's
US. That's all right.
Oh, anyways.
Number 7. That one's an easy one.
Target? No, Target's red and black. Oh,
Yeah, Target's
excellent.
red.
Kmart?
People spend too much time on it.
Facebook.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah.
Number 8.
Australia.
Yes, funny enough, it is.
Is that the right answer?
No, we're thinking brands here. We're thinking
Oh.
this is Subway, and it's not. I think Subway as a brand is not as strong here in Australia. So it's, it's still a thing in.
No, it is strong. I think because like when you have, maybe it's just me, but when you have the yellow so huge,
Yeah.
I don't revert to Subway, I guess.
Yeah. Number 9. This is a big brand. So this is BP.
Oh, what is that?
Yeah. A lot of companies use that color palette though, and that's why you can get tripped up on that. As well as number 10, but number 10 is a big tech company.
Tech company?
Tech, yeah. This one's Google. So they use a lot of primaries and secondary colors.
I guess they do. Yeah, they're very colorful.
Yep.
Initially,
Very colorful. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where most of Google's colors are primaries, and then they have one secondary to break it up, which is green. Yeah.
Doesn't it like it would be really interesting for you to do a few more of these and then realize that people don't think about the brands when you just show them the colors. I would say except for McDonald's.
Yeah, we have these like the subconscious sort of associations, and that's why like color really is powerful and sort of right away connects us to an emotion, which an emotion is connected to like a brand experience, right? An in-store experience. It's all this psychology that's involved around it, which is really interesting.
No, but what I'm saying is if the companies were using like it'd be interesting to see like in general how many people associate seeing these colors with the brand straight away. Like if you told it
yeah
them the answer, they'd be like, of course, but then
Yep.
if you didn't, they
Yeah.
couldn't think about it, that says something.
Yeah, it's it's sort of interesting to look at the whole color spectrum and how brands use them in combination with each other as well. So just like looking at the recap of some of these colors and some of the things to consider, right? We look at brands, we look at them as personalities and how they want to portray themselves. We can look at these, as a starting point to help us consider sort of the direction of how we want to put ourselves forward. And so, yeah, it really does matter. We sort of look at how things, we make decisions a lot of the time by the messages of that color. It increases brand recognition and studies have shown that right away. So it is a really interesting topic to consider and dive into. So just to recap some of those points that I was going through, the consideration of the cultural elements and time, the understanding of adding gray, adding black, adding white to the tint tones and shades does affect the color and the mood associated with it. And color combinations, the complementary, analogous, monochromatic, triad as colors to consider for those brands and the UI developments. And color meaning, really important to associate what the warms and the cools and the colors associated with them. So that was a crash course in color meaning, color psychology. It of course goes over 10 minutes because it's really hard to talk about this, but hopefully it again just is a bit of a pivot starting point to consider when we talk about brands and brand personality. And so yeah, that concludes color theory part 2.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic. I didn't think it was going to take 10 minutes. I was suspicious immediately. I was like, 10 minutes?